action.
My name is Laura Hartman. I am a former VA nurse, and I am here today with the founder of Veterans Education Tour, Pablo. And we're here today with one of our guests, George. So we're just going to be having an open discussion around different military topics and veterans issues.
Outstanding. And I'm 1620 Marine. She used my government name. Don't like the government name. 1620 Marine, aka Pablo. And we're doing this podcast to bring so much awareness to the veteran population and to their family and friends. And I'm lucky to have my co-host, Nurse Laura, here. And we have a special guest, Doc G, aka George, Air Force veteran, father, author, PhD in
defense policy, right?
Defense policy, and just a really inspirational veteran who's has set the tone and has led by example. And your story with your Air Force service, you were enlisted and then you became an officer. So that's extremely difficult to do, and that takes a lot of determination and discipline to go from enlisted to officer. And I love that you have the perspective of enlisted and officer side. So I'm definitely going to tap into that. But Doc G, just give us about a minute of what you do and a little bit of how you got involved with us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, first of all. It's great to be here doing the podcast with you. So you hit the nail on the head. I've got a background in the Air Force. I'm come from a different era, clearly, than the entourage that I'm with here this morning. But so I was in the Air Force from 1981 to 2007. And the time that I spent in the Air Force was virtually split in half between enlisted time and commissioned time. So it was a very interesting time to be in the military because it sort of spanned the height of the Cold War and then went through the U.S.'s unipolar moment when the U.S. was the lone superpower for a little while, and then it sort of trailed into the global war on terror period. So then that's when the ops tempo and purse tempo picked up quite a bit, and that's when probably the transition to what's meaningful to you all in terms of the VA and dealing with veterans became a very important topic. So an expansive era, but one that saw, quite a transition, but from two different angles, both commissioned and enlisted.
Outstanding. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart, because you've served the country over 20 years, and that's difficult to do, to navigate the military and stay in for that long and to serve the country. Especially regardless if you're in the Marines, Army, Navy, it's difficult in any branch to do over 20 years. So that shows a lot of determination and heart. And I love interacting with veterans like yourself, because I did 4 years. So I was conditioned for 4 years, but you've been conditioned for over 20 years to have that militant mindset. So that's some of the topics we like to get into as well too, is what issues were veterans dealing with? Was suicide a big issue back during your time when you got out? Was homeless veterans? Was there even anything about MST? So all these topics that now are brought to the surface, and now that we as Veteran Education Tour, Nurse Laura, Coffee Kava Social, these are issues that we tackle and bring to the forefront for our veterans, for their families and supporters, to learn really the journey of a veteran, especially the now 9/11 veteran. So, George, can you share a positive experience in your 20-something years and enlisted, and something is a little wisdom or jewel you could drop to someone that is thinking about joining the military?
Just thinking about joining the military. Well, let me just start by addressing the first part of your question. Looking back, as I reflect back on my military career, there's a couple of very striking things, and I'll just talk to one right now, and that is there was a tremendous lack of understanding when it came to that point of transition with regard to veterans assistance programs. Now, of course, this goes back a bit, but particularly, through the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, there wasn't a tremendous amount of awareness. People would come to either the end of their enlistment or they'd come to the end of their career, and trying to navigate, or even understand that the VA was available was something that it was complex and cumbersome. And the good news is that through the early 2000s, unfortunately, as a result of the casualties that were comparatively high compared from what we experienced during the Cold War and then to what we experienced during the early stages of the War on Terror, casualty rates increased and the VA had to respond. And as a result, then awareness levels increased, the access to some of the veterans programs increased, and people were able to not only gain access, but it became mandatory in some cases, like the Transitions Assistance Program. That was something that it existed, but I mean, not every installation had a standard program, and even among those installations that had a standard program, it wasn't always encouraged to attend. That mindset from a cultural standpoint changed. So the good thing that I would say that I've seen over the past several years, and I'm still affiliated with the Department of Defense and Military, and I see what's going on around me. With,
You're a current contractor, correct?
Currently, yeah. I support a contract actually that for 7th Air Force in Korea. So I travel out there and I work with folks, and I see that there's a much greater level of awareness. In fact, there's mandatory programs now, and it's gotten much better from that standpoint.
And just to feed off of that, earlier this year I was invited to a transition program led by Leadership Institute. And what they're focusing on there is changing culture. And not only changing culture immediately when you get out, but coming back to a community. So it was very business owned. There was business leaders there. There was the influencers that were within the local government there to empower veterans that recently transitioning. So we are here in Tampa Bay, and in Tampa Bay is MacDill Air Force Base. So SOCOM was there, SITCOM was there, and they're just building this bridge locally at a very small level to see, like, if the TAPS program, we can focus all day what's not working, but what is working? People are suffering. Like, what is working? Where are we starting? So what they were discussing at this conversation was deeply rooted in not only local leadership, but then changing the culture to change the conversation around veterans and military transitioning out, coming back to jobs, where to invest, how do you invest, what does it look like to live in, which community you want to live in, what types of schools are there, and just allowing that to be the new TAPS program.
Excellent.
And George, I appreciate you sharing that, because my experience getting out in 2004 using the TAPS program, I remember sitting in those classes and they had great information. They would give you a workbook with all the information, how to do your taxes for your state, all that stuff. The issue that I had was when I was the 6 months I was getting out, my mind was still in combat. So when I was going through the TAPS program, I was mentally not there. So it was very, I just remember the classes bits and pieces, and just remembering, like, really sitting there and saying, what's next?
Yeah.
Like, I have all this information, but I was really fearful about going into the civilian world and not knowing and basically starting over. But there was great programs the VA had to help, and there are so many great services. Like I said, 2004. Now, if you get out now, there's so much resources. I mean, it's overwhelming now that there's so much resources.
We call it the
thrown
sea
at
of
you.
goodwill in the policy world.
Which is a great problem to have, but it has definitely advanced, and I think the government, the VA, has done a great job on making sure the veterans have tools and knowledge.
And that's the part that's improved. And what you just mentioned resonates overwhelmingly with me, because I got out when I retired. It was literally the same time frame. It was that same window.
Yeah.
When I retired in 2007, I did what many military people, I think, do when they're either leaving the military or retiring from the military. They treat that transition as an assignment. In other words, it's their next PCS assignment in life. They're moving on to this new thing. And I Did you PCS at all when you were in the military? Change stations at all?
Did
you stay at the same
No, I
installation?
stayed in the same, yeah.
Well, when you PCS just means permanent change of station.
Yeah.
It means moving from one military installation to the other. When you do that, you generally wait, similar to getting another job in the job sector. You wait until you get into like a 90-day window, and then you get really serious about transitioning, and people start to leave you alone. They stop tasking you heavily, and you transition. Your household gets to get picked up, and you move on to your next base. Well, a lot of us tend to treat retirement or leaving the military in the same fashion, like it was going to be our next move in life. And I literally had to be talked into going to TAP class, Transition Assistance Program, not because I didn't think it was valuable, but I had just never been brought up in a culture at that time where that type of thing was valued. And I almost felt like I was leaving my job, I was kind of, scamming away from work a little bit. And the supervisor, he intervened and said, no, go. And so I went, and I was so overwhelmed with the amount of information that they presented and the fact that I was completely clueless as to what was out there. I signed up for another class, and I took it again, and I took it a third time, like all within like 3 months. And it was key to successfully transitioning.
That's awesome. And
What I was just gonna jump in. So what I heard there is definitely not only your work ethic, and this speaks to our military mindset. Like if we don't know something, we want to figure it out. We want to be part of it. We don't want to be left in the dark. So the curiosity and the eagerness to like just sign up again, so you can master that, so you can move on to what was next. So then my question was gonna be like related to like when you transitioned from from enlisted to officer and having that transition. What tools did you learn during that transition that then helped you pivot again when you were moving out into the TAPS program? Like, what is one tool there that was a useful military mindset?
The biggest tool for transitioning from enlisted to commissioned was simply relying on, you learn leadership skills throughout your entire military career, whether you're on the enlisted side or whether you're on the officer side, and they pound certain things into your learning curriculum. And one of them is coordinating. Of course, there's coordinating, controlling, all the other elements of leading. But also part of the leadership portfolio, if you will, is to learn how to delegate and lead through healthy coordination with the people that you work around. When I was enlisted, it tended to be a little bit more competitive. You were kind of competing with your peers a little bit to move up. So some of the adaptability traits I think that were required as an officer were to relax and learn how to rely on the leadership skills of the NCOs and the enlisted. And I hadn't been conditioned that way, so it was a little bit of a transition from enlisted to commissioned.
Great insight. And then to tag back on, like you said, you took the TAP courses 3 times. I mean, that's amazing that you were willing to do that to learn more. And just know nowadays, I think when I got out and when you got out,
I did get out in 2006.
2006, the TAPS course was required in order for you to check out of your unit and get your DD-214.
Right.
So I believe every soldier, every Marine or sailor, they have to take the TAPS class. So that's great that you're kind of forced to take it, but it's good.
I probably showed up drunk and late and just signed it because I had to get signed so I could go on to the next thing. Like by no means was I paying attention to any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. And I was medically retired from that too, and I was still like, I'm checking boxes. It's just that shock.
Yeah, and the transition too, when you left the Air Force and kind of was starting over, what was like a major obstacle for you? Did you have a family at that time? And what was like one of your first thoughts about getting a job? Were you thinking about going to school?
Or was it building business?
Yeah, because you got your PhD. Was like school an option? Was there did you use your GI Bill? And then what made you like want to continue your studies to have a PhD?
So a great question. Little bit to unpack there, but the transition itself, I'll tell you, I'll answer it this way, sort of in the reverse. it would have been a tremendous challenge, a much greater challenge, had I not used the tools that were provided through the VA, particularly the disability rating assistance provided through the VFW. That was something that it was a little awkward to I couldn't wrap my head around what that was even all about. And some of the recommendations that the VFW was providing, I wasn't even sure why they were providing that, about which disabilities to, maybe highlight or, so I would have been completely clueless.
You're referring to the compensation and pension?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was hugely helpful. I would have never successfully transitioned into the VA with a proper disability, package and all that had I not gotten assistance. So that would have been a tremendous obstacle. But and then later, I got to a point where later in life I became interested in pursuing education at a higher level, and I wasn't eligible for the programs, the Yellow Ribbon program, or the programs where you can pass your educational benefits off to your children. I had to use them. I missed it by like a couple of months. And so I still had this residual educational benefit, and I decided, why not? I might as well use it. Otherwise, I'm just going to lose it. And so, I got accepted to a PhD program and knocked out the PhD with just enough time left on the benefit. So no obstacles really, but because of some of the programs through the VA. Now, that's not to say that some of the conventional things offered through the VA and some of the conventional mindsets that are deeply rooted don't need to be amended.
Right.
I think there's probably still some opportunities. And when I was at the event hosted by your organization recently at the Center...
The Center on St. Pete Beach,
St.
yes.
Pete's Beach.
It's a Coffee Cava social.
It just sort of underscored some thoughts that I had first, that there's a definite need for organizations like yours to not only establish, but to proliferate programs that are tailor-made for veterans along a more wellness-focused line. And because veterans, like anyone, need to be healthy. And they need to free themselves from emotional duress, stress.
The grips of war that we suffered and went through the human cost of it.
Absolutely. And the second thing it reminded me of, when I was there, and this is not to denigrate the VFW, organizations like the VFW have done wonders for veterans, but it reminded me that there is a great need to move away from some of the conventional social lubricants that I think we've organizationally, in terms of transition veterans, we've relied on, and that alcohol for sure. And then also probably, to a degree, some of the pharma-centric, methodologies and medicines and things, practices that are used. And your organization, I think, is symbolic of what we need to continue to focus on to offer alternatives, more healthful alternatives, more tailor-made alternatives for veterans.
Thank you for that.
Yes,
and I know
thank you so much for that.
Breaking the stigma. I am someone in long-term recovery from addiction, and I was addicted to benzodiazepines, Xanax, and Adderall, but I was getting free from the VA system. So it's like I was getting it for free, and it was able for me to just continue to recycle that myself. So I've been 10 years clean and sober from pill addiction.
Congrats.
Thank you. And I've been 10 years clean and sober from hard liquors as well. And then what I've learned within the recovery movement is understanding that there's such a stigma around cannabis and plant medicine. But when I'm in the trenches, and I'm a former psychiatric nurse, I would see veterans and I'm like, the pharmaceuticals and the over-medication that they were getting, it's heart-wrenching. And so again, like one of the reasons I'm a functional nurse, and one of the reasons I'm a cannabis nurse, is to educate and to build that bridge and to advocate for that change, so veterans and ultimately everyone in the community can see that there are other ways, that wellness is front and center, mind, body, spirit, and getting yourself squared away so then you can go support your family.
It's so important.
Yeah. And Doc G, thank you for that great observation and insight. And I've heard this many times that we're kind of building a modern day VFW. And again, alcohol is the main highlight of most VFWs. When you go walk in, you see the bar. And, you know, I have nothing negative to say. The only thing I would say is that worked for the post-war era veterans, World War II, Korea, and
Absolutely.
Vietnam. That was kind of their marketing tool to bring those veterans in, you know. But now for the 9/11 veterans and the modern day veterans and the conscious veterans, it's more important to have stuff that are more wellness and more plant medicine.
Respectful.
And just something that is more longevity that's really going to help. So I love that insight that you gave us, because that's really what we're trying to create, is a safe space to heal, learn, and share. And I love the VFW as well too, but now we're trying to create a new model.
That's right.
And hopefully the VFW, and they have been very, opening, certain VFWs are, some aren't, but they're starting to see the light, that they're seeing that it's time to pass the torch.
Yeah.
It's that time, the Korean War, the World War II veterans were taking care of the World War I, then the Koreans were taking care of World War II, Vietnam taking care, so now it's like 9/11 veterans' turn to carry that torch now and take care of the Vietnam, Korea, and what few World War II veterans that we have.
That's so important. And here's the thing. Through no fault of the VFWs, the military,
It's a drinking
and not,
culture.
yeah,
Sorry,
I mean,
what's the drinking culture?
yeah, not to, the military as an establishment, well-meaning, but it really promoted alcohol use, particularly as you eloquently stated. It was something, it was an outgrowth from World War II through the Korean War to Vietnam, and all the way really beyond the Cold War and probably into the 90s, before there was an awareness that, hey, we're probably not, we should probably rein this in a little bit. Because alcohol was a very, very important part. It was the social glue. It was it was that ingredient. It was that lubricant.
The coin challenge. You didn't have your coin, you had to drink.
Yeah, and it was, now, I mean, for anybody that may be watching this, the idea isn't to say that, you couldn't, this was an off-duty thing. It wasn't promoted on duty. But certainly off-duty, if you could hold your own and drink alcohol, it was completely acceptable. And every installation had, like, I was in the Air Force, we had an Airmen's Club, an NCO Club, an Officers Club. Overseas, we had hooches. And right outside the main gate, there was a plethora of clubs that, a market, essentially, from everything to alcohol to prostitution. So I mean, this was just an outgrowth of the alcohol culture, and that did begin to change a little bit. And I think I have seen where it's changed rather markedly of late. There's been now,
That's hopeful.
But here's the thing.
Is it still the good old boy culture then?
Here, absolutely. Now here's the thing. That legacy has left deep roots in the existing social fabric that we still have. So, I mean, no, that culture hasn't
Changed.
completely disappeared. It's not as severe, I think, as it once was, but it certainly is still there. And as a result, you have organizations still, using that CONOPS, that concept of operations, like, and not to pick on the VFW, but that's why I think the first thing I think of if somebody says, "Hey, let's meet at the VFW," is we'll to sit down and have a beer, kind of thing. And so so it does. It still exists to a degree, but and that's where organizations like yours can be disruptive in a positive sense by offering a healthful alternative. Because no matter how you can have the greatest discussion over lunch and a beer, but at the end of the day, I can't tell you that alcohol is healthy. I mean, it's just not a healthful thing.
Yeah.
It's not going to help in terms of health. Some would argue that there's some therapeutic value to alcohol, but there's arguments that would say that probably not the kind of thing that you'd want to incorporate into a healthful regimen.
And I was definitely the enlisted that got ordered to go to sobriety classes because they found 151 in my pocket. So I didn't have effective coping skills. I didn't know how to articulate what's going on in my head. I didn't know how to
Those
communicate.
boundaries weren't there. Yeah.
Right, at all.
Right, yeah.
So when I got out, it went straight from like hard liquors to, oh, now I don't smell like alcohol, just hide it with pills. Nothing changed. I still didn't have effective coping skills. I didn't have awareness. I didn't know how to storytell or advocate. There was nothing around. So I was just like, oh, I just replaced 151 for Xanax and Adderall. And then so it was up and down. And then I'm like, this is how I can operate in a society. Right. And that wasn't healthy until I got to realizing, like, I had to get myself clean and sober and get myself in a healthy mindset to be able to advocate for other veterans who were getting over medicated, not having effective coping skills, didn't know the traumas that they were suffering were bleeding into every spot of their life. They didn't have that awareness. They were just operating, and it's usually out of survival and fight or flight, and then they don't, the intent isn't to harm people, but that's what was happening. So then I kept, you can only go to so many suicide funerals before you're like, I'm becoming a minister. This is the only way we're gathering veterans together is at funerals. I'm going to become a minister and find other avenues to help empower veterans to change culture.
And George, that's great insight because you served from 1981 to 2007, so alcohol was still being fueled and pumped in the Air Force. So as Marines, Marines drinking, it's a drinking culture. Whatever branch you're in is a drinking culture, obviously, which you share. And a lot of the reason, not only is it machismo, right? The men, especially the 70s and 80s, meant to drink beer and party and do that. But it was the only way for active duty members to deal with traumas and issues was self-medicating with alcohol. That was the best that we had. The issue is that's not productive when you're self-medicating to deal with issues of alcohol. And then you carry that bad habit out the military, and then like you said, because the VFW, the stigma that I had was, oh, we're gonna meet at the VFW. Like I said, we're gonna drink beer. But what I always had the stereotype of is, oh, if I want to get blackout drunk, I could go to the VFW. Because they'll serve me till I'm black drunk. So it's like that culture is still heavy. I think there are a lot of alternatives now, especially to younger veterans. I think the last 10 years, they're seeing what, alcohol really does to the body. And again, it's counterintuitive for the VFW to have a bar there when all their veterans are struggling mentally. So you're just fueling that suicide ideation. You're fueling anxiety, anger, and you're fueling depression. That's right. Have a drink if you're a connoisseur and you like liquor and a couple of drinks. Yeah, have a few drinks. You're allowed like 0.8 legal limit. But when you're drinking like you're in a barracks, or you're drinking like you just came back from a deployment, that's the issue. And then a lot of veterans, it leads to the suicide rate that we're at right now, over 22.
Right. Is that still the number?
22 to 44.
So it's sad that we truly don't still have a number, but I'm using 22 as a symbolic number. I think that number was in 2010 when we started getting more awareness how many veterans we're losing. And the 22 is just a basic number, but basically at the end of the year, it equals up to over 8,000 veterans.
Of what the average daily
I know during post-COVID, the mental health crisis has spiked in 2021. The mental health crisis has spiked for everyone, and suicide has increased since 2021 for everyone.
So I remember the 22 push-up challenge that was going on. And I actually did the challenge on Facebook, and it must have been the 2015, 2016 time frame. But to your point, where the military, the establishment lacked a little bit of, I guess, over the horizon, foresight, was the long-term effects. I mean, from a near-term perspective, somebody just off a deployment, or that night, maybe at the O Club or the E Club or what have you, at a dining in or a dining out, alcohol is was sort of the go-to lubricant. But the long-term effects is really where the tragic story lies, and whether it's for the younger folks who have come back from their traumatic experiences overseas and then wind up in a suicidal type situation, or even people who don't wind up in those situations, they wind up later with tremendous health problems. I mean, I can't tell you, just a super quick vignette. When I joined the military, as an enlisted person, I joined, and I started off as a transportation specialist. So I did that for a couple of years. My very first assignment was to Korea when I was 18, and I had no idea. I couldn't even point to Korea on a map, to be honest with you. But when I got over there, I loved it, loved the culture, and wanted to cross train. So I became a Korean linguist. Went to Monterey, went to language school, went to Osan Air Base was my assignment. I ended up staying there in Korea for 6 straight years after that. But when I was over there, drinking was wired into the culture to a degree that, I mean, the personification of somebody who just was like a super cool person was somebody who excelled at their job. As a linguist, and I won't name the unit, but when I was in that unit, if you excelled at your job and also ran the Ville hard, and the Ville was the club district off base, if you could run the Ville hard, come in the next day and work hard, play hard, work hard mentality, then you were in there. And I look back at that, and I'm mortified sometimes when I think about the effects that had. I won't say, well, fortunately, I was able to, no, I was able through a variety of, luck and other, circumstantial things that happened to not get pulled into that too dreadfully. But I have friends that wound up really mired in that. Some of them have passed at what I would consider to be rather early departures from planet Earth, unfortunately. And this was the lack of, vision, I think, that the military establishment had when it came to this. Not that they were not promoting upfront alcohol, but there was definitely a culture that was acceptable, when it came to alcohol.
Or even working in a psych ward, there is alcohol-induced dementia. All of our geriatric patients there, I'm like, every single one of them is alcohol-induced dementia.
Yeah.
And it's, again, liver cirrhosis and your body decaying, let alone the fact that it is a depressant.
Right.
So you're already depressant, and then you're drinking stuff to keep you more depressed. You don't have a support system. You don't have a healthy family at home. You don't know how to ask for help. And all of a sudden you feel like you're all alone, or you're in a spiral. And that is where we step into, like, not only to break the stigma, but to show alternatives and to show community and to be like, you can live sober, and it's okay if you do need cannabis as a bridge.
That's right. Not enough, if research is required, fine. If it's not required, find ways to promote alternatives that are just going to be better tailored packages for the people that, and it shouldn't be confined to veterans, but the topic is veterans, obviously, but people need holistic solutions that aren't going to accelerate, a trajectory to death, early death, and solutions that aren't going to be potentially harmful to their lives, whether it's internal, to their home life, or whether it's external to the people around them.
And that's one thing with the Veteran Education Tour is trying to do, is bring that awareness that there is an alternative, especially our veteran community that's been conditioned to use alcohol to deal with mental health.
Yeah.
So now what we're trying to do is like, hey, there's so many great alternatives. There's sound therapy, there's meditation, there's yoga, there's co-baps. For myself, meditation has been probably the strongest factor in my mental health recovery and growth is meditation. And I actually learned meditation from a Vietnam veteran when I was in inpatient PTSD program in Montrose, New York. And that really sparked the journey for me on this wellness, health and care, and just being very conscious. And I want to know, like, when you transition, because you seem like you're very conscious and you're very in tune with your body. So, like, when did you start breaking that shell, that military mindset, and started opening your mind and heart to all these other modalities that can help you mentally, especially since back then PTSD wasn't really a word or a coin yet. It was just, you have shell shock, or you're from the military, you're Vietnam, you're crazy,
That is such a good question, because I would say only recently, maybe in the last 3 years or so, become much more open to some of the unconventional or non-conventional approaches, if that's driving at the heart of your question.
Mhm.
So when I originally got out of the military, I pretty much transitioned into a lifestyle around the DC area, working as a consultant or a contractor at the Pentagon, and then I started working within the recesses of that company in the business development area. Ultimately transitioned to another company, but kind of, I would say never really departed mentally or, in terms of my, the way I just operate as a human being. Didn't really make any serious alterations for many years. If anything, maybe just things sort of started to relax and become reduced. In other words, I, like many of my contemporaries, drank pretty healthily, or copiously when I was active. Now, when I got out of the military, that was tapered. It kind of came down, but it was still pretty consistent. But a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago or so, 4 years, 3 years ago, during the COVID period, I experienced what I thought were heart palpitations. Right after, the vaccinations and everything were kicking in. And whether or not there's a connection, who knows? But nonetheless, it wound up being nothing. It wound up just being a normal thing that people experience from time to time. But it's kind of a crazy situation because of the palpitations, which I thought were very serious, ended up not being, thankfully. But I went to the hospital to get treated, to get my heart checked and everything. And when they did that, I had to wear a device. And so I went into, I don't know if you've ever encountered a health issue, and then you go into like serious mode. And one of the things I did was I just, I had up till that point enjoyed wine with a meal at night. Maybe 2 glasses, occasionally 3, occasionally even 4, but not every night. But I'd say, 4, even 5 nights a week, wine with dinner kind of thing, as I was transitioning to sleep. I stopped doing that. I thought, well, no, I'm wearing this device now. I'm going to be healthy. I got 3 days in. I was out to dinner with a friend, and we were talking about it. And he mentioned something, and I realized I may be distorting the results of this test because I'm not doing what I normally do. I should just go ahead and, have my ordinary glass of wine with dinner and be okay with it and just let the results show what the results are going to show. And when I did that, I looked the following day, I realized that those 3 days that I didn't drink alcohol, I had the nicest sleeps that I can remember. Yeah. And so I just, from that point, was like, alcohol is really not that important. So I just stopped drinking. And I did that. I started making some other very, very slight incremental changes that opened into supplements, increased, intake of vitamins, that kind of thing. Supplements for mental clarity, supplements for focus, that kind of thing. So, excellent question. Sorry for the long-winded response, but yeah. So it kind of it's been more of a recent thing. Yeah,
late bloomer.
Yeah,
late bloomer.
Pretty much.
I was a late bloomer as well too. For me, it was like probably around 35, 36 years old. I started realizing all the harm and the alcohol, but opened up my mind consciously to be like, there's other things I could do to help me mentally, to help me deal with depression, deal with suicide ideation, and the meditation. And another big thing was getting into the plant medicine stuff. For me, I didn't use plant medicine till the first time till I was 32 years old because I was against it. I grew up with an alcoholic and addict mother. My family did drugs, so it was always around. So I always associated cannabis with that type of stuff. But that's another tool, meditation, plant medicine. And another thing is community. Being around supportive people like Laura and many friends and mostly veterans that I've met to support each other. Not that civilians don't understand what we've been through, but when you say you're a veteran, then I know that you have that same heart, that same service to serve people. And now that you've been through the bull stuff,
Right.
you've been through it. So, and I love meeting veterans because I love meeting different branches because in the Marines and being in infantry, you're very isolated. So I love that I get to meet other Army veterans and Air Force veterans and get their perspective and what they did and things that were fun and things that weren't and their deployments. And it's just really amazing to share that because now it starts, when you share, you heal.
That's right.
And then a lot of veterans, minimize their service. And that really breaks my heart when I meet veterans. Like, oh, well, I really didn't do anything. I didn't deploy. But it's like you signed the contract just like us. You were willing to deploy, And a lot of veterans I meet, aren't necessarily combat veterans, but they deployed. And I try to tell them, like, hey, you deployed. Regardless if you got a combat medal or CIV or I don't know what you guys call an Air Force, you deployed. That means you're willing to sacrifice yourself for your country, for your brothers, and go be above and beyond. So I love what we do, and I love the community that we're building. And just letting you know that the 9/11 veterans, and you're part of the 9/11
Right.
veteran as well too, but really the younger veterans that we do have you guys in mind, especially the Vietnam veterans, and a lot of the services that we're providing has those veterans in mind, like doing things holistically, because that older generation was very conditioned to be against plant medicine.
Oh, yeah.
And especially the Vietnam era, even the Cold War era as well too. I mean, there was a lot of civil injustice going on. Plant medicine was demonized and it was illegal, or if you popped on the piss test in the military, you were kicking out. That still, to me, breaks my heart and just throws me in such a shock that you would get kicked out for trying to deal with trauma and stress by smoking some weed, which is crazy. But
I would like to have one thing before we start
Yes.
wrapping up. Can we loop back to sleep hygiene and how you found sleep hygiene when you removed alcohol and the quality of sleep and just maybe some other lifestyle medicine changes that you've done that you want to end with?
And also add, Doc G, you look like you're in amazing shape.
Well, thanks.
Add, like, if you do exercise or, like, just what keeps you looking healthy, young, and mentally sharp as well.
Well, thank you. Those are tremendous compliments, by the way. Probably the compliments that I'm not worthy of receiving. But I will tell you that I like to walk. So when I'm in a situation where I can walk and or drive, I'll try and walk. So, and that usually, you wind up racking up 10,000, 12,000 steps a day, doing that. So, and it's pretty effortless. We have a little dog at home that demands a little walk, so I end up having to go out and do that. So, in terms of health, that's about the extent of what I do. I should probably do more. We do have a fitness membership to a gym that's right near our house, so I should be taking more advantage of that. In terms of just health and sleep is huge. So I didn't realize just how important a good night's sleep was probably until recently. Really, it determines, how you function the following day, but not only that, how you perform and function for that week and, ad infinitum, so it's something that once I realized the negative impact that alcohol had on that, that's when I could easily make the decision to remove alcohol from. Before that, it would have been a little bit of an argument. I would have felt like, the typical
defensive,
and kind of like, I don't, I'd be missing out on something but when I realized what it did in terms of, getting in the way of good sleep, that's when it became easy. As far as other, health things, I think I do something, it's more inadvertent than anything else. I think I intermittently fast, and I don't necessarily do it overtly. I just tend to confine my eating to certain times of the day, and I confine it to certain types of food. I tend to like, vegetables and salads with some proteins, that kind of thing. And I find that if you do that, you wind up getting used to those types of food and you wind up craving them. So that's been what little moderate and humble level of success that I've had, that's I can ascribe to those habits.
Beautiful. And I know you are an author, so please share the title of your book and where people can get your new book coming out.
Oh, well, so on a totally separate topic, thank you very much, by the way. So this is a shameless plug for
Please.
North Korean Nuclear Decisions and Strategies, Sovereignty, Legitimacy, and the Bomb. It'll be available September 30th on Amazon, Routledge, and Taylor and Francis. So if you'd like to buy a copy, don't let the price as it currently exists shy you away. The price will definitely come down. It's all a function of supply and demand. So thank you for that.
Of course. We want to support our own.
Yeah, and appreciate you coming and sharing. And this is key. This is what we're trying to do, is bridge the gap and show that we do have a lot of commonalities, 9/11, Vietnam, Cold Era, that we can work as a collective. And, we're all leaders. And to me, I feel like as veterans, it's part of our duties to get together and try to create more resources and awareness and just show more support to our veteran community. The Vietnam veterans didn't have the support, and I feel like the 9/11 veterans we have. So now it's time to take advantage of that and really grow it into where we can include all the eras of veterans. And Doc G, George, really appreciate you. I love your story that you went from enlisted and officer and then academically got your PhD. You just inspire and motivate me and other veterans, like showing that, you're a badass. Like, continue to be a badass and keep doing great things. And your book is, we're definitely going to check it out. And maybe we'll have you back on to even go a little deeper into your book and your story. That would be amazing.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And and this is the bond and relationship that we want to build with our, family members, friends, co-workers. And just to know that you're supportive, like you're not alone, I'm not alone, you're not alone, Iman, you're not alone. We have a great support system, and it starts small, right? That's when we started building.
Humble beginnings.
You started creating this idea in your mind and building. It just started small, and then it's grown and growing. And now the circle's so powerful. Now we're attracting all these amazing veterans and leaders and community leaders.
Sponsors, investors.
We're looking at. And just know that we're trying to create a community that's unlike any other community. And a community that's not just about veterans, but it's about the whole community. Because the veteran is supported by the whole community. Nurse Laura, you have anything to end on this?
I'm grateful. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being the first one. And
thank you for sharing.
We set the standards high, and that's what we like. We accept challenges. Woo! Yay!
All right. 1620 Marine in the house, Nurse Laura in the house, and Angela, our photographer, is in the house. And we're just putting this together real quick just to and we got Iman in the house as well too. Super fun. So this is the beginning stages, and I like to say this is the behind the scene of the creation and building of the Veteran Education Tour, which is bringing together righteous veterans and civilians to come together to educate the veteran community, their families and spouses, and to teach them true wellness. And we have you a part of this. You're a part of the team. Thank you so much for your support and your energy. And you're the daughter of a veteran, and we got to interact with your father, Doc G, Air Force. And just want to tell you that I truly appreciate you when you brought him to our event and we got to connect, and he got to see you in your glory, serving your community, serving veterans. Aww. And since that day, you've been so enthusiastic to help us grow and be a part of this. And, I just want to say thank you, because we don't really get to run into too many people that don't have military background that's so passionate about helping and serving veterans. We get a lot of people, we support the troops, but they talk the talk. you talk the talk and you walk the walk just by your actions. So truly appreciate you. Very blessed to have you on the team.
And I would love for you to share for whoever's listening right now. So Pablo and I are co-founders of the Coffee Cava Social, and that is the ability to go into sober, safe communities, market, if you will, to veterans, just to educate them and empower them and believe in them and pour into them and share knowledge and share perspectives and all the good stuff. And in doing so, you are at one of our debrief circles. So like we have the event on Thursday, and we're in go mode. Like everyone knows their role. We collaborate together. It's beautiful and it's executed. And then like we recharge for 72 hours. And like, okay, now how can we make this 1% better? What is needed? How can we grow? What went well? What didn't go well? Let's plan the next one.
Right.
And in doing that, we're sitting in sacred ceremony. We had just given out cacao ceremonies. We like go around and we have this talking stick. And I won't share, would love for you to share the awareness that around the military industrial complex.
All right. We are just going to crack me open then.
Please?
Yeah. I mean, I just want to say.
It's relatable.
Yeah. And thank
It's
you
real.
guys. You are changing everyone's lives. So speaking for myself to answer that question, I was definitely one of those people. Yeah, I guess I support y'all. I don't understand you guys. It feels like there's a big, far away thing going on where I don't even know what you guys go through, anything like that. So when we did our share circle, I didn't expect it to happen, but you know, the tears started coming out. And I was like, I just realized I had such a stigma with veterans in general. I had so much biasness, whatever, because I grew up and saw my dad, and he was so deeply affiliated into everything, and you know, just getting that one perspective, and then what I see or hear on the news, I just didn't understand anything. And then I see you guys bringing all these people in and really letting everyone get to connect from the heart with one another, and then you realize we're all the same. So it has changed my perspective on all of this.
And it inspired you to actually go and share with your father what we were doing and invite him,
Oh my
which
God.
ultimately just led to the interview, because
Oh
it takes
my
one person's
God.
perspective to shift. It takes one person's awareness to shift, to be like, I don't care how enlightened or how, like, if you're not close to your family, you're missing the target. Your own actual blood. If you want to be enlightened, how are you with your family? Your blood family. And maybe that's culture, maybe I'm biased in saying that, but that is my belief. So then here you are, you're sitting there and you're like, oh, my dad. And you had that, and we were friends prior to this. We used to run in the same conscious circles, and we've been in very similar ceremonies multiple times before. And you didn't it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. It was so humble. It was so inspiring to watch you share and have that, and then to see that ripple effect from one perspective, one person,
I love that. Yeah, because I've been going to medicine circles, plants and whatever. That didn't get me and my dad close. This did.
Right.
I mean, there's no medicine really involved.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's
I never
incredible.
thought.
And that's a lot of courage on yourself as well too, because to go to your dad and be like, hey, I'm doing this thing that's so different from the typical veteran stuff, and your dad is over 20 years Air Force PhD, so I know that could be a little anxiety ridden, like, I'm gonna tell my dad I'm hanging out with these veterans, how is he gonna think? But you knew what our intent, our mission, and you saw the value of telling your father this, because you knew what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring that awareness about love and asking for help and strength. It's not a sign of weakness that a lot of veterans go through. So it was just such an amazing and connecting experience when you approach your dad, and we were able to shout him out a little bit.
You were awesome.
But I really
I love that. I love when we just, it was.
And this is like building the foundation of the veteran education tours, like the people associate. They're bringing in their family and friends and showing that what I really would like people to know, that we're just not focusing on veterans, we're focusing on the whole community. So that's why our Coffee Kava socials has been pretty amazing. Yes, it's for veterans, but it's for everybody to come and learn, because a lot of civilians, like you said, you don't really truly know like what veterans do and their true stories and what they're going through. And then once you hear a story, like, wow, that I could relate to that, you know.
Because I have the perspective that she's not even a quote unquote civilian that you had just said. Like, she's a family member, and children are still. And I know my sisters, for specific, my sisters deployed when I deployed. I volunteered, they didn't. I was able to see out of it, they weren't. When I knew the storm was coming to me, I was like that buffalo. I ran straight through the storm. They weren't. They are still shell shocked. They are still going through their own stuff. They are still in the drinking culture. They are still on their own journeys, and that's their soul's journey. So I truly believe, not only when I see family members, I'm like, thank you for your service. I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because the entire family unit serves. It's not just one person. You guys carry the burden. You carry the nest. You're the ones that are getting the aftermath, the pillow talk, everything that's happening. Like, it truly is the entire family, which everyone is interlocked to that family to some degree. So that's how why our community is building very rapidly, because people relate to that. They relate to being like, I do know a veteran that's suffering. I'm like, so when you come, you're able to build that bridge. You're able to have that conversation. You're able to educate, empower, whatever that looks like.
And also, we're all like-minded, so it makes creating programs and projects that serve veterans fun and easy, because we all have their best interests. And of course, you're a daughter of a veteran, and you know, I know you want your father to have great
He
experiences.
was playing crystal balls. We walked in.
Yeah,
He was playing crystal
Dude,
balls.
this is all. Yeah, and when you said we're all like-minded, I'm like, we're all barefoot right now.
I walk in, your dad's playing crystal. Oh, like, oh, this is so good. This is what I saw. This is why I left the VA. Yes, it is possible. It is possible. It is. Hold the manifesting generator in me. Just generate it. Just create it. Just go create it. It's not happening for you. No one's coming to save you. Just go build it.
And it works. All these different services, sound therapy, art therapy, they all work. And that's the amazing thing, is that's what we're bringing. We're bringing these different avenues of healing to help people really target things that they're really struggling with. Everyone's trauma is different. We all get trauma from the military, from being in a difficult life situation, obstacles of domestic abuse, being in a car accident, being bullied. But it doesn't matter where you get the trauma, because we all suffer from the symptoms, so we can all heal together. So that's where we're trying to come together. It's like, hey, regardless of where you got it, you're suffering from depression, this is what we can do. Let's get you in some meditation. Let's get you some sound bowl. You know,
It's one avenue. We definitely don't want to encourage trauma bonding by any means. We want to challenge people and stretch people and show them different avenues of things that they wouldn't be exposed to. Have that be plant medicines, or have that be any type of alternative therapies.
we do want some trauma bonding, though, because I mean that.
I'll let y'all talk.
It can be toxic. It can go back down. It can lead. It can pull people down.
Well,
it's definitely
it
not
can,
healthy, but it's.
But
I hear what you're saying.
Instead of looking at a side, it can pull someone out of depression. It can pull someone out of suicide.
Yes,
ideation.
by exposing them.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
yes.
it is
yes,
difficult, but that's what we bring these topics so we could talk about it. Like I said, killing that elephant in the room, because if you don't speak
Right, because
about the
22 is just not a
elephant,
number on your shirt. I can go down names. It's
Yeah.
Chris, it's Jose, it's people that we know. Like, that's the reality of our truth. It's like,
Yeah.
when I get, literally, that's what inspired me at a grassroots level. I'm like, every time I pull veterans together, it's for a funeral. Why is that?
Oh my God.
How can I, literally, that was me inspired. I'm like, how can I pull veterans communal together? And if I have to hear the poem read one more time, live between the dash. If I have to hear that poem one more time at a funeral for a
Savage.
suicide, I feel some type of way about that.
Of course.
I feel some type of way about that. I'm going to take some actions because I feel some type of way about that. I'm going to build that so I don't have to have that feeling again. So others don't have to experience that same feeling.
Yeah.
To be like, wow, this is really inspiring. You're getting inspired at a funeral of a dead person that killed themselves because they didn't have anyone.
yeah, no support. That's what we're building.
The elephant in the room. I feel like with the military, that's one of the biggest elephants out there.
friends, a big ass elephant.
Because we're told to have friends. Like you have a battle buddy everywhere you go. Where's your battle buddy? Don't go. Where's your battle buddy? And then all of a sudden you're split and you're ripped, and then you're institutionalized, and you only want to go to school. You go to jail, you go to school, you go to prison. Like that's institutionalized because they tell you what to do, what to drink, where to go, how to do. They're used to following orders. So once you break out of the institution, this is why I like hanging out with the hippies, right? Because it's the authentic, it's the free, it's the ones who truly can understand more and see more and live differently. And that's why I'm like, how can I bridge these two worlds?
They teach you how to fire a rifle, and they teach you how to
that's why female veterans have the highest
destroy
suicide rate.
things, but they don't teach you how to mentally deal with the destruction that you cause. You know, so that's what we're doing as a collective, is helping veterans learn how to deal with that.
We are taking that line and posting it everywhere. Oh my God.
Truth sets people free, but the truth also brings people together, because if you can relate to that, and again, going back, this is not just a military thing. This is life. This is people. Yeah, we're serving veterans, but we're serving humanity as well. We want everyone to win. We want everyone to do good. And life is hard. You know, life isn't easy. Everyone goes through struggles.
Every single day.
And so it's like, if we could be a shining light, if we could get the veteran community to step up and be leaders and show there's ways to deal with this. If I could do it, you could do it. You know, because I'm not any more special than an Army guy, Navy guy, or a civilian. I'm not special. We're all from stardust. We all have that universal and divine energy and love in us. So it's like we can all come together and heal. So
and get sober and get clean, and that's usually the first. Like if I can get clean and sober from pill addiction, that's getting pills free from the VA. It was too easy. If I can get free from that, the depths can be let go of me. It can be let go of anyone.
Yeah.
It takes willingness. That's all it takes. And a guide and other steps and people and things like that. But that's what the community's for, to help show you different, to help educate, to help empower, to believe.
And Angela, just to switch the topic a little bit. So you're a veteran, a daughter of a veteran. Basically, you're kind of civilian. You're not. You're like a hybrid civilian, I would say, right?
You served, in my humble opinion. You served.
Some debate?
Yeah.
Out of the Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Air Force, and Marines, what branch would you have joined if you were going to join, hypothetically?
Space Force. I hope Space Force is an option.
Wow, that's
Space
cool.
Force.
Well, even my dad always said that he could see me in the Navy.
Ooh.
What does that mean?
That means you're a worker and you like being on ships, I guess.
Interesting.
I could definitely see you an officer
officer,
in the Marine Corps. That's what I would see you.
Whoa.
As an officer in the Marine Corps. So now, with that being said, what's the best branch? You've heard all the branches. What did you hear about the best branch?
What branch my dad was in? I'm not gonna say the other answer. Air Force.
That's it.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Good answer. Good answer. All right, let's wrap it up, I guess.
What are your closing thoughts?
2
What are your
minutes,
closing thoughts on
and,
Veterans Education Tour?
Yeah.
It's so powerful. You can bring it up to the people that have gotten to get a taste of it so far, and their eyes just bulge, their heart opens. They're like, yeah, this is it. And we are just getting started. Let's go.
Love that.
What are your last thoughts?
Just know that we're organizing and we're coming together, and be ready for wellness, mental health, community support, fitness, push-ups, all the great stuff. Just be prepared. We're coming to provide this service, and we're doing it as a team. So introducing the team, and Iman's there. He's behind the scene, but part of the team as well too. So yeah, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what we're gonna do in the next 6 months, and what we're gonna do August 23rd, 2025, a year later from this date. Where will we be? How many people will have impact? How many podcasts will we have taped and recorded? And then just the greatness, seeing the greatness and seeing the true vision of everyone coming together and putting in the work. Because that's the thing is people talk the talk. So we're going to walk the walk, and our actions are going to prove that we've been walking. So, yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah,
High
thanks,
five,
guys.
team.
Yeah.
All right.
Come on.